Welcome back, folks. Just a little technical reminder. As I'm recording each of these videos, particularly in the 100 level, I cannot for the life of me figure out on YouTube how to have them filed from earliest to latest. They come up latest to earliest. Now, when you look at the channel content for this YouTube channel, there's a column there that has date on it. If it is not from video 101 first, just look at that date icon and click it so that the arrow is pointing up. Then they'll come out in the order that they need to follow. This is particularly important in this 100 level series of performing at your best, so that you have the correct sequence and flow so that it is indeed an unfolding. Thank you for your patience on that. That great baseball philosopher, Yogi Berra, says you cannot hit and think at the same time. That's wonderful. That he highlighted something which is now our principle 6 of the key 7 principles of optimal, maximal, and peak performances. These principles lead to perspectives, which leads to proper action steps. And that is, without being too mystical, learning how to purely do your activity or your actions. I love these two words together. Purely do it. Do it purely. That purity and doing go hand in hand. Now, you all know what I'm going to be saying next, is that your trivia question is, in the franchise series of Star Wars, who do they introduce in episode 5? Yes, the little creature Yoda. And if you could hear and translate what he was saying there when Luke was listening and learning to him, you heard the often repeated cliche now that went, do or not do. There is no try. Yes, it's simple, and it is a cliche status. And cliches are cliches because they are true. Just repeated too often. Is that there is a distinction both in clarity of thinking, clarity of feeling, and clarity of performing between trying to do something and then simply or purely doing it. When you go through this, you'll find out that a lot of people are triers. Think back when you heard someone else, or maybe yourself, say, well, I'll try to do it, but I don't think I can. Or saying something like, I'm trying so hard, but I just can't do it. That's because trying is not doing. Trying to do something is one step before doing it. In fact, putting all of your energies into trying to do something is actually setting yourself up for failure, because you're diverting all your energies into spinning your wheels instead of just purely doing it. Many years ago, when I moved out west, I immediately got into rock climbing, climbing up a sheer face of a wall, of a wall of rock face, with your butt hanging out over nowhere, saying, why isn't this relaxing? Rock climbers have their own culture, and part of that culture is a rating system that ranks the difficulty of the climb, ranging from 5.0, essentially walking up stair steps, to right now, I think it's 5.14, going up a vertical face or overhanging face. When I was rock climbing, the highest ranked climb I climbed was a 5.7, pretty good. And it highlighted the difference between trying and doing. If I was at the base of, say, a 5.9 rock, higher and harder than I've ever climbed before, and had the mentality of a trier, I would be saying this, looking up, saying, I gotta make it to the top of this rock. I gotta make it to the top of this rock. As we went back from principle 4, triers set inappropriate and unattainable goals. For triers, the outcome is either total success or abject failure, no place in between. Paradoxically, do you see what I was doing with my hands during that as a trier? I was clenching my fists, expecting to make it, ought to make it, gotta make it. Paradoxically, these are the things I need to be as supple and pliable to get up the rock. Now, if I was the same person with the same skills and experiences at the base of the same 5.9 rock and had the mentality of a doer, I would be saying to myself, let's see how I can plan out this first pitch. Pitch is a length of rope, usually 150 feet. Doers set more appropriate and attainable goals. Those goals, they reduce to specific plans. It's been said that rock climbing is like physical chess. You have to figure out what move lends itself to the next move. And so as looking out at my plans, I would start mapping out my first couple moves. Now, the difference is that even though I might not have finished it as a doer, I would come down with a whole different mentality than the trier. The trier would come down, look at him or herself with abject failure. I totally failed. They also do this thing called snowballing or extrapolating. They say, if I can't do this 5.9 rock, I can never be able to do any 5.9 rock, which means I'm a terrible and limited rock climber and a useless human being. You see how this stuff snowballs. A doer might come down from the rock and say, hey, I did it. I started climbing, ing term, this 5.9 rock. Maybe next time I can make this difficult sixth move or second pitch, setting more appropriate and attainable goals. Doers like using words that end in ing. I am right now speaking to you, ing. You are listening or taking notes right now. ing terms connote an ongoing process. And that's the essence of doing, is emphasizing what you can do and allowing it to come out. Remember our principle number 1 again, about the reservoir. Last video, I talked about learning how to relax. It keeps this performance pathway from this reservoir of skills, abilities, experiences open and more relaxed. Doing is allowing this flow to come out in a more natural, fluid, ongoing way. As Yogi Berra mentioned, it's one of the principles of this whole psychology of doing, and that is this: you cannot think and do at the same time. Those are two separate processes. Before these sessions, I take a lot of notes. I mentally rehearse what I'm going to be saying. I am thinking and planning before these sessions. During this video speech, if you will, I am in a pure doing mode. And I'm sometimes amazed what comes out of my mouth. Knowing though, and trusting though, that 98% of the things that comes out of my mouth will be good. So that aids to my relaxing during the actual performance. You cannot think and do at the same time. Learning how and when to think before the performance and after the performance, for planning or reflecting, and during the performance, just immerse yourself into a state of purely doing. That's when you start making all of these connections and allowing all these integrations to come out. You cannot think and do at the same time. Another corollary to this is that triers only know one way of adapting to adversity, and that is to try harder, to push harder. where creative doers have a lot other options. During adversity, they may take a mental time out to even backtrack. Going back to my rock climbing analogy, sometimes a doer may have to take a couple steps back down the rock to see if there was another route around that difficult overhang or section. Triers never even think about that. They only know of one form of adjustment. Try harder, push harder, become more intense, grind it out. That may work in some situations, certainly not all. Doers are a lot more creative, and they pause and then they start doing again. Doers love the process. They love the experience. Yes, they have goals and hopes and wishes, but it is the immersion in the process that their best selves come out. Remember in an earlier video, I talked about the Delphi oracle of know thyself. I think the great corollary to that is be thyself. And by doing, you be yourself, and you even become even more. Learn how to trust yourself into purely doing. There's a time to think for planning or reflecting. Learn how to just immerse yourself. Start with little things. Do by reading something online, and just immerse yourself in that passage, or read a book. Or when you're listening to these videos, don't take notes the first time through. Just be doing and listening to this and aligning yourself with what I'm saying. Learn how to do things, things at a little bits in the time. They will add upon themselves. There was a neat fiction writer by the name of Richard Bach. He was a guy that wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull and one of his famous books was called Illusions, Reflections of a Reluctant Messiah. And a follow-up book to that was the Messiah's handbook called The Reminders for the Advanced Soul. When we talk about human performance, here's a couple things Richard Bach talked about. First, to learn anything, you must put aside the safety of your ignorance. To learn anything, you must put aside the safety of your ignorance. A lot of people are not necessarily stupid. They are ignorant. They don't know that there's other things available. And we're safe sometimes in our ignorance. Put aside the safety of your ignorance. He also said this: you are never given a wish without also being given the power to make it true. You may have to work for it, however. And that's how mastery happens. Following your wish and working for it. He also said, we are, as human beings, game-playing and fun-having creatures. Become energized in your performance for its own sake. You're extending yourself. You're living. You're on the tightrope. You are what he called the otters of the universe. You ever watched an otter play? They're just living in a full, fluid, joyful manner. That is the essence of pure doing. Learn how to give yourself permission, not to think, not to try harder, just learning how to purely do. It is a wonderful state to be in. Find out for yourself.